God. Oh, my God.
The trembling voice you just heard is of a husband who had just discovered his wife, Linda Jensen, age 39, along with their infant, in a state he would have never imagined. His wife had a knife pounding through her chest, and clues pointed out that whoever did this was known to her, which made everyone a suspect. But years later, investigators uncovered a dark secret about the killer, and no one could believe it. But who could have this much rage against a young mother? And what exactly was this dark secret that led police to the killer? Let's find out. Linda Elizabeth Jensen was born on June 16, 1952 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Her family described her as a fast-going person from a very young age, who loved speed skating, running, and riding horses. She grew up in Minnesota with her 3 other siblings, leading an ideal childhood. At the age of 18, she got married to the love of her life and childhood friend Charlie Jensen on April 4, 1971. They both knew each other from a very young age, as Linda's family used to rent a cabin from Charlie's family during summers. After 2 years of marriage, they welcomed their son Andrew in 1973. Both of them couldn't be happier. But things soon went south. And after just 7 years of their marriage, both of them decided to part ways in 1978, as Linda was upset with Charlie's addiction. After separating from Charlie, Linda became a dental hygienist and went on to build a relationship with a man named Robert Beard in 1982. They had a son together named Joey, aka Joseph. But soon after, their marriage would fall apart because of Robert's abusive nature. She took her son along with her and separated her ways from Robert. Then she married the 3rd time, in 1986, to John Silliman and moved to California. Silliman even formally adopted Joey when he was a couple of years old. However, later on, she once again found herself in a toxic marriage with a man who had changed after they tied the knot. She filed for divorce from Silliman after 2 years of marriage and moved back to Minnesota, where she could be closer to her family. There, she again met her first husband, Charlie Jensen, who had left his addiction and was leading a sober life, reminding Linda of the guy she fell for years ago. Both of them again indulged in a romantic relationship and got married again on April 4th, 1991, on what would have been their 20th wedding anniversary. Soon after, they welcomed their second child together, Lisa, into this world. Their firstborn, Andrew, also used to live nearby. Everything seemed to be more than perfect for all, and their happiness knew no boundaries. But their happiness was short-lived, and nothing in this world could have prepared them for what was coming. February 24th, 1992 seemed to be another normal day for Charlie as he left for work at around 6:15 a.m. But little did he know that once he would be back, neither his home nor his life would be the same. Charlie called Linda 3 times on that day between 9:45 a.m. and noon, but the calls went unanswered. He got a little worried about this and went home early, only to discover his wife in a horrible state. When he entered his home, he found his stepson sitting on a table doing his homework. When he went to check on his crying daughter in her playpen, he found her in the same clothes in which she had slept, and that seemed quite odd to him. He tried calling for Linda, but there was no answer. And as he stepped into their master bedroom, his eyes met a harrowing scene that he would never forget. He discovered his wife's lifeless body, without clothes, lying on the floor alongside their bed, partially covered by her comforter, with a knife protruding from her chest. Upon seeing his wife in this state, he immediately called the police, and they reached the crime scene soon after. The Sherburne County Sheriff's Department responded to the emergency call. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension was then contacted to assist in the investigation of the crime scene. When investigators reached the crime scene, they noticed that Linda was stabbed multiple times by the knife. The murder weapon was proven to be a steak knife that, interestingly, was from Linda's kitchen itself. However, there was no sign of forced entry or theft that led investigators to determine that the sole motive of the perpetrator was to attack Linda. Investigators gathered forensic evidence from the crime scene, but no blood or fingerprints were discovered that didn't appear to be Linda's. The sheets from Linda's bed and a condom were also missing and had never been located, which indicated that Linda was assaulted and the perpetrator wanted to make sure that there was no evidence left. As this gruesome murder stunned the small Minnesota town, police swiftly launched an investigation. Now there were many unanswered questions in front of investigators. Who could have done this to a young mother? Was the killer known to Linda? The level of ruthlessness showed that the killer had so much rage in him against Linda. With no witnesses and not much evidence, police canvassed the neighborhood and turned to the autopsy to find more information about her last moments. Linda Jensen's autopsy revealed that in addition to multiple stabs, there were indications that she was strangled as the killer wanted to confirm her death. Examiners also found bodily fluid on her ankle and body, which determined that she was assaulted too. Her cause of death was found to be strangulation during abuse, and she died between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. Upon confirmation of violation, police collected DNA samples from 80 men, which included many potential suspects, but couldn't test it because of the sample size, as DNA technology at that time wasn't much developed. Police had a long list of suspects, and they started their investigation with their very first suspect, Linda's husband, who discovered the body. Both of them had been divorced once earlier, so the police had their reasons to doubt their equation. However, when the police started questioning him about his whereabouts at the time of the murder, he stated that he was at the office all this time, which was later verified by his alibi. He even went through a polygraph test, which he passed. After ascertaining all claims by Charlie, police determined that he was not the killer. So they asked him if he was skeptical about anyone else, and he pointed out Linda's ex-partner, Robert Beard. Besides this, police received a crucial tip from a delivery person that led them to a different suspect. A postal delivery woman claimed that she was at Linda's home around 11:30 a.m. that day and saw a man pulling an old tan truck out of the driveway. She described him as a man in his 30s or 40s with shaggy brown hair and white-flecked beard. She said that he had scratch marks on his hands and was crouched down in the truck. She helped the police with creating a sketch of that person, which they later circulated in the town. Investigators also re-canvassed the neighborhood and thought someone might have seen something. In the efforts to inquire neighbors, investigators reached out to the Jones family, who lived just a half-mile away from the Jensens. Mrs. Deborah Jones reported that she knew Linda and had also seen the old pickup truck in the area, but did not recognize the driver. Her husband, Kent Jones, was not home at that time, but later clarified that he didn't know Linda. Cops then started to investigate Linda's ex-partner, Robert Beard. He was Joey's biological father, but gave up his custody and didn't pay child support. But police discovered through Charlie that he was trying to get more visitation before her murder. He contacted Linda at least twice a week to demand visitation, and even threatened Linda to gain full custody of Joey. This information was more than enough for police to suspect Beard in the case. They brought him in for interrogation, but he denied being involved in the murder and provided police with an alibi. He even refused to be in touch with Linda. He also claimed that he could never have committed this crime as he didn't have a car, and it was not possible for him to walk to Linda's home. He told the police that he was home all day when the incident happened. But what really stood out for the police was that his supposed alibi couldn't really be corroborated at all. Feeling the heat, Beard asked for a lawyer, which raised another red flag for officers, and they started suspecting him even more. The investigators in Tribune County strongly saw him as a potential perpetrator, but due to any solid evidence, they had to set him free. Detectives also flew out to California to question Linda's third husband, John Silliman. Linda's family claimed that he was abusive during their marriage and enraged by the court order to pay child support for Joey, as he was not his own child and John only adopted him at Linda's request. He was also furious about her last pregnancy, which happened before their divorce was finalized. But when police questioned Silliman, he was quickly cleared due to the presence of an alibi and established that he had been teaching on the day of the murder. One after another, leads started hitting dead ends, and the case went cold after 5 months in the summer of 1992. By May of 1994, even after tireless efforts from law enforcement, the case remained unsolved and eventually got closed. Despite all the hopelessness, Linda's sister, Sandra Rowland, never really lost hope. She kept calling every 2 weeks to the police station to inquire about her sister's murder. Her persistence finally paid off in 1999 when the newly appointed sheriff, Bruce Anderson, reopened the case. He was the initial investigator in this case and had now become the sheriff. The Homicide Cold Case Unit tested Linda's assault kit against 80-plus DNA samples that were collected in 1992. Which included Charlie's DNA as well as both exes of Linda's, but none of them matched with the perpetrator. Police once again hit another dead end and appealed to the public to provide any details related to the case. But this time, police offered a reward of $10,000 for it. The investigative team set up a tip line, and they received an anonymous call with a very promising tip related to the case. A man who called the police claimed that he overheard a conversation in the gym about how Linda Jensen was killed. He said that the man who discussed the murder was a bodybuilder named Richard Christie. Richard went to the same gym as Linda, and this indicated the possibility that they might have known each other. Upon receiving the tip, police immediately rushed to the gym to interrogate Christie. He said that he knew Linda and even believed that both of them were a thing. Finally, after 7 years, police believed they had a breakthrough in this case. But their hopes were short-lived. Investigators asked Christie to give his DNA sample in the hope that it'd be a match with the perpetrator. But it didn't. Once again, this case went cold for another year, till the year 2000. When a big breakthrough came across. In June of 2000, a new witness would appear which would turn the case upside down. A woman named Angela Hennon called the sheriff's office and claimed that she was in a relationship with a man named Kent Jones in the 90s, shortly after Linda's murder. She said that she was a prior acquaintance of Kent, and both of them had an extramarital affair. Whenever she brought up the discussion about Linda's case, as it was the talk of the town at the time, he used to become furious and denied knowing her. But later, he completely changed his story and told Angela that he in fact knew Linda quite well and had seen her jog around his residence. His statement also contradicted what he had told police back in 1992 during the investigation. While digging deeper into the case, they found out that he was married, had 4 children, and was a scout leader. But despite his church-going and family man image, he had also been charged with domestic abuse. His wife Deborah once went to the ER with a stab wound, claiming that she slipped near the dishwasher and landed on a knife with the handle down. However, police doubted this story, and according to court documents, it was one of several domestic violence calls police had gotten about Kent. Angela even said that besides his normal family man image, Kent had a dark side too. She claimed that he had a lot of skeletons in his closet. Upon receiving such odd information about Kent, it rang an alarm bell for police, and they immediately went on to interrogate him. Initially, he straight away denied knowing Linda, but after prompting from his wife, Kent admitted that he knew Linda because she had come to his house to discuss having her son join the Cub Scouts group that Kent led. After being questioned again, he even admitted to better acquaintance with Linda and said she used to jog past his house. The investigators described his first impression as very anxious. Then police went on to ask him if he had an affair with Linda, which reportedly made him aggressive and defensive. Police then asked him for DNA samples to be tested against Linda's assault kit, but he simply refused. Now police grew more suspicious of him, as he was the first person in 8 years to deny giving DNA samples willingly. After seeing all the red flags from Jones, detectives couldn't keep calm and they got the warrant for his DNA testing. And then came the biggest breakthrough of this case. His DNA was indeed a match with Linda's assault kit. After the DNA match, Kent Jones was arrested on July 25, 2000, and charged with first-degree murder. However, a grand jury on August 16, 2000 indicted him on 2 additional offenses of second-degree intentional murder and first-degree criminal assault conduct. Kent Jones's arrest left the community stunned, as he seemed to be a loving husband, a duty-bound father, and a noble person who liked to go to church. They were not really aware of Kent's dark side, and never suspected him of this cruelty. He went on trial in May of 2001, but during his trial in November of 2001, he made a shocking revelation and still claimed his innocence. Kent said that he was having an affair with Linda Jensen, and both of them had got intimate consensually right before the day of the murder, and that's how his DNA was found on her body. However, the medical examiner testified against this claim and stated the condition of the bodily fluid found on Linda's body made it highly unlikely that it was deposited the day before the murder. During his trial, he even accused Linda's ex-husband and Joey's father, Robert Beard, and another man, Robert Christie, from the gym, who had shown interest in Linda for the murder. But the prosecutor objected to these claims by stating that both of them had already been cleared out in the DNA testing, and on no grounds either of them could be accused. The judge ruled in their favor, and Kent was not allowed to accuse either of them at his trial. Throughout the trial, Kent's statements changed multiple times. On December 8, 2001, the jury found Kent guilty of all 3 charges, and he was sentenced to life in prison. The perpetrator was sent behind bars, and the family got its justice. Seems like an ideal ending, doesn't it? But wait till you know what happened afterwards. On March 11, 2004, Kent Jones won a retrial based on the sole grounds that the previous judge did not let him show evidence implicating Beard or Christie. His second trial began in November of 2006, but instead of pointing out Christie or Beard, Kent started accusing Charles Jensen of Linda's murder, or the unidentified man who was supposedly seen driving a pickup truck on the day of the murder. He once again changed his statement in this trial and stated that he had been intimate with Linda on the morning of the murder, not the day before. Court documents also reflected that Kent claimed he was a skilled lover, and Linda just couldn't resist him. On November 30th, 2006, Kent was again convicted by a jury for each of all 3 charges and sentenced to life in prison on the same date. The Supreme Court also later upheld that conviction in an order released on July 31, 2008. Kent Jones remains incarcerated at the Minnesota Correctional Facility, Stillwater in Bayport, Minnesota, and is eligible for parole only after 2030. Sounds like a win for society and the Jensen family against a perpetrator. But wait, because here's another jaw-dropping twist in the tale that would just make you question your own judgment. A new shockwave emerged when a medical examiner presented evidence for the prosecution that this would become a huge issue later. Dr. Michael McGee was the premier medical examiner in the state and was often called first to present medical evidence related to the cases. He worked from 1985 to 2019, and during this time period, he was involved in over 216 trial cases, which even included multiple death penalties with advancements in DNA cases. A sort of pattern began to emerge in Minnesota when in several cases convicted individuals were found to be innocent after spending years in prison. And most of these cases had one thing in common: that they were examined by Dr. McGee. In 2022, an independent audit revealed shocking information about Dr. McGee's office, that for the whole 35 years, his office was never checked because of a unique arrangement between him and the county. It also came to light that McGee often used unreliable and inaccurate tests and could change any of his findings according to his convenience. According to his convenience. One of those impacted due to Dr. McGee's malpractices and asked for a release was Kent Jones, citing that whatever tests were run on the sample could ultimately have contaminated the evidence in Linda's case. 31 years later, the murder in Big Lake stood a chance of becoming a mystery once more. And if you thought this was the only remaining twist, then you're highly wrong. According to some reports during trials, there were certain things that were left undiscussed. The postal carrier woman testified that the man she had seen in the driveway was not Kent Jones, as she knew him because she used to deliver mail in the neighborhood. Above all, it was the question about the crucial evidence that was found on Linda's body. A gray hair that didn't belong to her, and it was never established by the investigators to whom it belonged to or where it came from. Jones didn't have any gray hair on his body when the murder happened. However, all of these claims were dismissed by the court due to a lack of strong evidence available. Today's case highlights the dedication of police officers who worked tirelessly over the years to uncover the truth, and the remorse of Linda's kids who were forced to live without their mother. While Kent Jones waits for his next opportunity for appeal in 2030, Linda's family is persistent in keeping him behind bars. He could walk free or subject Linda's family to a third trial. Only time will tell what happens next. But one thing is very clear: that Linda never deserved the end she tragically met. So what's your opinion on this case? Was Kent Jones given what he deserved? Or is Kent Jones serving jail time while the actual killer is roaming free? Who do you think was the person in that old pickup truck?